I've never seen so many negative observations out of a 44-point victory, but I saw them concerning offensive red zone struggles, running game. Those two in particular, you can't say much about the defensive effort, of course, turning the ball over constantly 6 times. But since we are in the business of being critical, I guess we'll start on the side of what did you take away that needs some improving?
Yeah, when you look at this Ohio State game, it was a tale of two halves in a lot of ways, even though Ohio State did win 54-10, 44-point margin, but they got bogged down a lot with a lot of short fields. Their average starting position in the first half was incredible based on Iowa's inability to do anything offensively. And we can sit there and say, oh, short field, short field, short field, but you've got to be able to do things in the short field. And, I think a lot of that shows what happened with rushing. They had 30 rushing attempts for 66 yards. Not a math major, but that comes out to a nice, neat little 2.2 yards per rush. Ohio State only had the one rushing touchdown. Ohio State had to settle for 4 field goal attempts. Ohio State had only attempted 3 field goals all season long. 2 for 3 from Noah Ruggles, and then sit there and deal with 4 of them within the red zone. So I mean, it was certainly an issue, or 3 of them were in the red zone. One was from outside, but it was not their cleanest game by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not here to make excuses. I mean, they were coming out of the open week. I mean, there was just probably a little difficult to get up for Iowa, and Iowa plays really good defense, but none of that's going to matter going into this week for Penn State or any of the games the rest of the way through the schedule. I mean, Ohio State's going to have to play better, and I think that if you're an Ohio State fan, you should take some solace in seeing the adjustments that they made in the second half, and things, not necessarily the running game got any better, but, it seemed that they found some more success because they were able to adjust to some of the things that Iowa was doing.
Steve, can you imagine in their young careers, Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson have ever experienced days like that? Because we know what they've done in college. I can't imagine going all the way back to Pee Wee football that they've ever averaged collectively like 2.5 yards per carry.
Yeah, it was very much troubling, I think, to watch the way Ohio State tried to establish the run to no avail. And I think part of it was that early in the game, C.J. Stroud was also struggling a little bit with his accuracy, trying to fit the ball into tight windows in the red zone because they were taking over at the 25, the 35, the 40-yard line there in plus territory, and it really shortens the field, makes it difficult, and you can't really go over the top when you're already in the red zone. So Iowa was able to sneak an 8th or 9th man up into the box. And when there's no threat of the quarterback running the ball, they were able to tee off on the running backs, key the running backs. And, I mean, when you're in a single back formation, there's only one guy that can carry it. And so Iowa played really well defensively, at least against the run. And I think for the first half, to hold Ohio State to 26 points, given the fact they gave Ohio State the ball in Iowa territory so many times, that was somewhat of an accomplishment. And then I think that the defense for Iowa kind of gave up in the second half because the offense was so inept and going 3 and out and turning it over. They had a couple 1 and outs, I think, where they turned it over on the very first play of a series, the first play of the game, and then the first play right after Stroud threw the interception in the second half, I think, was one play right back to Ohio State, I think a fumbled snap. So, yeah, it was kind of crazy. It was a weird game. And, that's what it looks like when you're playing a Big Ten team that's big and rugged. And although not very good, but still big and rugged, those things kind of happen. So is it a bad sight for something that could happen down the line against Michigan, where they even had fewer yards last year in the loss to Michigan? I think that was 66 yards to 69 for this. And, that brought back a lot of bad memories. I know that.
So, Kevin, how much do we attribute that to not just Iowa's ability on defense, but the style of defense they played? They pretty much loaded up and trusted their cornerbacks to take on the Ohio State wide receivers. So it is going to be more difficult to run, especially when you compress all those passing lanes. And a lot of those difficult runs were, in the red zone, inside the 15, inside the 10.
Right. And, as Steve had said, CJ was not very sharp in the first half. He had his moments, but, he was short and, on a couple balls and just not, it just wasn't necessarily there. So, I mean, there does have to be some concern with where, how they were trying to attack this, the defense. I mean, they prepared all week for quarters defense, which Iowa runs 80-90% of the time. And they got a ton of single high, good old single high once again, which was something that didn't necessarily work when Ohio State was trying to run it. But, Iowa did a good job with that, loaded the box and really, did a lot of things of where they were walking guys up and just selling out to stop the run. And they were successful. And, for whatever reason, it took Ohio State until the second half to be able to kind of, solve that. And it's going to be something that they're going to have to fix quicker in terms of other opponents, if anybody's able to find similar success in doing things. Fortunately for Ohio State, not a lot of teams out there that are going to be able to replicate that. I mean, Iowa is a perennial top 20 defense in most categories year in and year out, and a little bit better this year in terms of what they were able to do. But then you go to the second half, and a lot of people were questioning why Ohio State was throwing with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, but they were trying to put some football between the bad first half and where they stand now, and sort some of these things out. And you know what? If Iowa was not going to show much resistance at that point, once the dam broke, then Ohio State was going to take full advantage of it, and did with 4 passing touchdowns in the second half.
Yeah, if Buckeye fans want a reality check, they do need to realize that the pitch and catch isn't quite as easy every week as it is for them. And those perfect throws and perfect catches and ridiculous catches in the tight window type passing that we saw that produced 4 consecutive touchdown drives in the second half, that's not like common to your every football program across the country. So we talked to our Iowa guy yesterday on our Iowa show on Tuesday, and they were a bit marveled by the precise, abilities of the passing game in the second half, that was picture perfect on a lot of occasions against tight coverage. But of course, they're used to seeing a whole other end of the spectrum. So I don't know if they're the best audience to judge a passing game, but still, when it got clicking, and they put up 54 against top 10 defense nationally. So